What's everyone saying about SBF? He got 25 years?
25 years and CZ's next.
And I think that this is fucked up, but it also does make sense. Like what's happening here is they're basically scapegoating him. They know that there's so much fraud and financial crime that's like intertwined with crypto. And so what I think that they're trying to do is they're trying to make an example of him.
And I think CZ's next, and I think he's going to get somewhere in the ballpark of 2 to 5 years. He's as big of a crook as SBF, CZ is. You know, this guy was rumored to be worth $100 billion, parading around the world.
So he doesn't care. I'll do 5.
I mean, federal prison's different. They're not going to the Martha Stewart jail. They're going to real jail.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, group chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
All right, Cathy's. There's a full-blown attack happening on celebrity males.
Hip-hop celebrity males.
What are you talking about?
No, just
Andrew Huberman.
General too.
Oh, yeah, sure. Huberman, Lucian Grange. You're right.
Diddy.
I don't know why Jay-Z is getting dragged in.
Prince Harry.
Prince Harry.
Who else name I keep seeing pop up?
It feels like everyone's taking advantage of Justin Bieber, if you believe the internet.
Yeah, I mean, poor guy. So we have our good friend Zach White on the pod today, subbing in for drama. And before we get into, business news, we have to talk about more important things.
Real news.
The real news. I mean, this is the biggest news of the year.
Yes.
And there's been some insane shit happening. But Diddy's home raid was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And really because, it was Beverly Hills, it's Miami, people are tracking his plane, and then his kids are getting arrested.
Yeah, so the Southern District of New York, which is, if you've ever watched Billions, that's Paul Giamatti's.
Yeah.
It's like the most kind of sophisticated prosecution arm of the country.
Yeah.
They go after all the financial crimes. They go after everything. And so the Southern District of New York and Homeland Security decided that they need to raid his Homely Hills house and his Miami mansion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the video of them on the boats storming the Miami mansion.
Yeah.
It felt like a movie.
Why? What did he do? This cannot be over like sexual assault charges.
No, I think there's like 5 John Does that went to the Southern District of New York and spilled the beans. We don't know what the beans are.
Zach, what are the beans? I feel like you know.
Well, apparently he's the new Jeffrey Epstein.
That's sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking.
So what does that mean in the context of Diddy? Obviously, he can bang any girl he wants.
Allegedly.
So what's the
Allegedly. Who said he's banging girls?
That's true.
Or guys.
Yeah.
He can bang any girl or guy. So my point is, what's the sex?
I think there's some girls and guys that would say no.
Well, the guy who put out the original lawsuit basically said that Diddy made him travel around to commit sexual acts. And I think that that's where a lot of this is coming from. Apparently,
Rodney Jones.
Apparently, Diddy has been doing this and making people basically travel with him. The whole thing is that he would like groom these people under the guise of having some sort of like music career or involvement in his records, etc. And he would bring them around to like studios in New York, parties in Miami, things in LA. And I think that once you intersect those things, technically become sex trafficking.
Basically saying, hey, come with me to Miami this weekend, bone me all weekend, and I'll dangle this career opportunity for you.
So I Googled what sex trafficking, the definition is. It's exactly that.
Yes. So
yeah, you're now on the FBI's most wanted list.
Yes. So anytime you cross state lines or
nothing to hide.
National lines under the guise of bringing somebody for sex,
yeah,
it becomes or sex for payment, some sort of payment. Doesn't even have to be monetary.
Okay. So let's assume that's true and that's happening.
Okay.
Why is the Homeland Security? Is this a national security issue?
Well, there's also a lot of claims that he has been basically conducting a variety of other things besides sex trafficking. Have we talked about the Kid Cudi thing?
No, he blew up his car.
That's what Kid Cudi says.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of other stories like this where he's like blown people up, had people shot at, et cetera, et cetera.
So he's like a mafia at this point.
It seems like he's kind of like a mafia-like figure.
Yeah.
And potentially, keeping people quiet, forcing them into weird situations.
Hey, at least the lyrics are real.
And there's a lot of drug trafficking associated with this too. I don't know if you guys saw that there was a video of his drug dealer getting arrested. At the
basketball player.
Syracuse basketball player.
Yeah, at the Opaloka FBO. And so, there's just a variety of different things that make this not a...
But
there's a lot of meat on the bone on this one.
Yeah.
And I think we've been around we've seen him many times. I mean, he almost beat the shit out of my wife, Amanda.
Yeah. You could be a part of this, charge.
Should I get on the court case?
Yeah, it's your life will get torn down though. Because we're going to look into everything then.
I have nothing to hide.
So you say.
But no, I think it really seems like if they're going to go to this extent and the Southern District in New York, and here's the thing, like people talk about like, oh, you can get away with crime forever in America, that, that's like the whole fraud is okay. They just take time.
Yeah.
Till they get you.
Everyone gets taken.
Everyone gets taken down. Even if you look at, we'll talk about SBF later, but like it took a little time, not that much time.
Yeah.
They're talking about, all these various business crimes.
So why are all
crimes.
these why was Prince Harry's name named in the suit? Because he was at a party?
Yeah.
He used to come to Diddy parties. Yeah. So the craziest part about all of this is, I don't know if you guys, for some reason decided to read all 72 pages of the original affidavit.
Jesus Christ.
Is incredibly granular. The amount of detail and specificity around things that no one else would know unless these things were actually, there's pictures, there's timestamps, there's like a whole variety of information.
So he's screwed.
It seems like at the very least, he's not a great guy.
So he's the Andrew Huberman of rap.
Potentially.
No, worse. Because he's sex trafficking.
Because Andrew Huberman
is just a fraud.
No, Andrew Huberman is not a well-liked person and a womanizer. That's different.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's legally doing it.
Nobody's arguing Diddy's a womanizer here. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah, he's a manizer. Manizer Bush.
Did you see the Usher clip on Howard Stern that's gone viral?
No.
So Usher at age 13, this is on Howard Stern. His parents sent him to Diddy's house in New York.
Diddy took conservatorship of him at 13.
They called it Bad Boy Flavor Camp. What parent is sending a 13-year-old to
desperate for fame? It happens every day in Hollywood,
and
it's been happening. There's that show that's on HBO right now, Quiet on the Set. It's
about the Nickelodeon thing.
Nickelodeon and the how kids like Amanda Bynes, Drake Bell, how these kids were treated as children.
Yeah.
My contrarian perspective on this is that we're actually just scratching the surface on this.
Yeah.
And this, I think this is lining up to be like another Me Too type of situation where there's going to be like this massive push towards all of these people in Hollywood who have been basically taken advantage of for their fame or for their careers. I think you're going to start to see a lot more people coming out.
I'm surprised it took so long because Harvey Weinstein was probably like 6-7 years ago, right?
I think this is...
I thought that would have exposed everyone.
I think this is a different type of people and threats probably like Harvey Weinstein was threatening people with like their career. Diddy's going to blow your car up.
Yeah.
That's a lot scarier to come forward. Right? Like someone threatens Cassie's saying he's blowing up Kid Cudi's car. Do you know how insane that is to blow? What is this, Godfather? Like, who does that?
At this point, you have to believe.
How do you do that? How do you find someone to blow up someone's car?
And no one gets in trouble, right?
Yeah.
There's no consequence to Kid Cudi's car being blown up.
So Prince Harry's there because of the parties.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lucian Grange, who's like what, the head of Universal Music?
Yeah, he owns Universal Music Group or is the
CEO.
Acting chairman or whatever.
He also brought COVID to America.
That's the rumor.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And basically the original complaint stated that Lucian Grange was aware of a lot of these things.
Got it.
And that these parties were actually used as like a marketing function for Universal Music Group to a certain extent. And so not only was Diddy hosting them, but there may have been some sort of paper trail where Universal Music Group was paying for the parties.
Yeah.
It was a part of Diddy's album rollouts, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it.
So now
that's
Universal,
why he's the potential liability on
Correct.
them is he may have given 25 grand to sponsor the party, and then you
All
as a
this
sponsor
terrible
know
shit.
that it's going
Yeah.
on and you allowed it.
correct.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
I think everything's pretty believable. And D, you could be the arbiter of this. We can edit it out. In the early mid 2000s, we have a friend that used to go to a party hosted by a very famous Hollywood person called Butt Naked or Bounce.
Yeah.
And so at like 11 p.m., you either get butt naked or you bounce.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm very interested in the Jay-Z of this all. I'm fairly certain that the next domino to fall here might be Jay-Z, and I'm extremely excited about what happens with that.
So
Is it just because
the affiliation?
that's just the next logical person? Because Diddy is a king, Jay-Z is a king, and
No, I think what's happening here is like what I was talking about, that there's like an actual movement happening.
Got it.
And that there's a lot of people who are like, oh, if somebody like P. Diddy, who has like all of the power in the world, especially when it comes to rap, black entertainment, etc., can be brought down can be held accountable for things that they did. There's nothing to stop us from actually taking down other really powerful people who also may have been doing similar things.
Yeah.
And we basically, there's like a movement towards this happening specifically in black entertainment right now for this stuff. Yeah.
What's interesting
Do you
is
think the whites just went down first and now the black kings are going down?
No, I think it's like almost verticalized to like industry, right? So
Yeah.
it was like the movie industry, right? And now what's happening is television with the kid child stars, Nickelodeon, et cetera.
Yeah.
And now you're having rap, which I think, historically has had like a very like don't snitch type attitude, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter what happens to you, even if your car gets blown up, you're not going to the police.
Yeah.
You're not talking to anybody about it. You're basically just like, like live and let live and let things get figured out in the streets. And I think now, maybe that's not so much the case anymore. The new generation of people in the industry.
like, yeah, why are we putting up with this nonsense? I don't
Correct.
have to do this anymore.
And like you think about girls or guys that have had relations with these famous rappers, they're 10 years out and they're just like, I'm literally sitting with trauma. Now I can come forward and actually not get killed.
Well, I think also like of all the things that Rodney Jones or whatever his name is was called, not one of them was a snitch. Nobody was like, oh, look at this guy snitching on Pete. Like there's no
one is accusing him of lying.
Correct. So like, I think that's the other aspect of it too. Whereas like there used to be kind of
I think the Harvey Weinstein era, everyone was putting a lot of pressure on women. They said, you're a liar, blah, 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 blah. Like that Me Too era was really tough on women to come out because everyone was getting accused of lying. And then it swung the other way where like everything became Me Too. And then now we're at this era where like, I mean, like the stuff that I think that I don't know if we as society can handle is anything related to children. Like when you see like Usher telling you these stories, that shit scares people. Anything child, and that's
think
why like
about
Epstein.
Usher going on Howard Stern saying like, I saw some crazy shit.
Yeah.
And then he didn't deny whether he was involved with it or not.
Yeah, and I think like when you hear children involved, that's why the Epstein thing was so crazy. But yeah, are a bunch of people fucking on an island? Is Bill Clinton out there doing it? Yeah, of course. Children. That's when people's head just starts exploding. We're like, whoa, what is possible? And there's always been this notion, like on the internet of conspiracy theories, everyone in Hollywood is pedophile, right?
And now it's like turning to be true.
No, you
Not
can't
everyone.
say that because that's
not
true.
everyone. But my point is that
There are cases of it that's happened.
I think it's way more widespread than anyone wanted to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that to your point, the intersection of children and like billionaires and really powerful people, there's always been kind of like these conspiracy theories in the background. It's like what billionaires do in their free time.
Yeah.
You don't even want to know. It's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's like increasingly, I think that Jeffrey Epstein was actually the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Because once you see those flight logs, once you see like who was going to the island, who was partying, it kind of opens up this world of like possibility.
What possibility,
of,
which
like,
is why I think like if you took Jeffrey Epstein, what happened with COVID, throw on Trump on top of that, stop the steal. Nothing is sacred anymore.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, who was the cornerback, Darren Sharper, that went to jail for like 70
Darren
years?
Sharp. Yeah.
He was putting Molly in bottles and drugging girls and going home and sleeping with them.
Yeah.
And he got prosecuted and he's in jail for it.
Yeah.
If he's doing it, I mean, let's be very clear. He's a nobody when it comes to fame. And he has the brazen attitude that he's able to do that.
Yeah.
So do you think super, super powerful and famous people aren't doing similar things?
Yeah,
It'd be naive to believe.
I think that's fair. I think that the challenge that we now have is that where it gets completely out of control is that, like, I saw Taylor Swift is next, according to the internet. She's getting taken down.
What are they saying? I haven't seen that.
They're taking her down. The news is popping.
What, she drugged Travis Kelce?
We'll have to wait and see. That's the next shoe to drop. But that's the thing is, if everyone's out there saying this constantly, then everyone is guilty till proven innocent.
I think that like the macro thing here is that like all of these institutions that were once held sacred, which is like the U.S. government, the richest people in America who are the most successful, entertainment industry as a whole, like these are things that people never really questioned before.
Never.
And then I think that things like Epstein, COVID, like if you were a conspiracy theorist, 15 years ago, people looked at you like you were the most insane person of all time. Now you're kind of prescient. Like basically like you kind of saw the writing on the wall before everybody else.
Yeah.
And so now I think that there's like, especially with what's happening with X, like the discussion, if you type in Diddy on X.com, you can spend hours learning all types of really interesting things. And so I think that there's like this new paradigm where people are more willing to question things that were otherwise held sacred before.
So I agree with that. And I think it's incredible that we are questioning things, but there's also a danger level where like, because
It goes too far,
I do it too, right?
Yeah.
I question everything.
Like, the Angela Chow.
Angela Chow, the
Have you
shipping
gone down that
company,
deep dive, Zach?
Well, I'm
the shipping company that crashed the Baltimore Bridge is Angela Chow's company.
And she drowned 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I know her husband, so I'm gonna be like respectful towards this, but she is. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that a lot of different conclusions people are drawing from what's happening here.
Can you explain the conspiracy? Because I don't know if everyone's followed it.
Well,
so Angela Chow is Mitch McConnell, most powerful senator for the Republican Party's sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law.
And Jim Breyer's wife, who's one of the best venture capitalists probably ever. We talked about this in the 2 weeks ago episode.
She had an unfortunate tragic accident where she drowned on her own property in her Tesla, like in a pond. And she and her, I think, former husband or family ran a very large shipping company.
She was a CEO, I think.
She was CEO, chairman. And I don't know the exact conspiracy, but we know that the shipping company that hit the bridge is that company, which is the bridge in Baltimore where 6 people have tragically died. And there's all kinds of conspiracy that like that bridge coming down, the economic impact it's had on transporting goods is enormous. Yeah, it's huge. We don't realize how important these.
I mean, the Wire season 2 was about the Baltimore shipping ports.
Yeah, so it's like it's not the biggest port in America, but it is an important port.
Important port. Yeah, top 5 probably. Yeah.
And so it just like anything that happens now. Like, think about like this last week. Let's just talk about some stories. We had Diddy, which is insane.
Yeah.
We have Shohei Ohtani, the most insane gambling story.
I want to touch on that after we finish it.
Porter, who I don't even know who that is. He's betting $2 million a month on FanDuel. $2 million.
Well, no, that's what the volume was. And that's what tipped off the DraftKings.
The volume just on him.
They're like, this guy's a nobody.
Yeah.
Literally no one knows who this guy is.
Yeah.
And there's this much volume going on because prop bets.
Then you take this Angela Chow thing. You take the Baltimore Bridge thing. You take Kate Middleton. You take... Our minds can't take this. Think about it. If you're a cynic, you must... And then, oh yeah, by the way, we're handing out... $350 to migrants, because if I told you that a year ago, you would told me that I'm crazy for saying that we're just letting in migrants in the country, not only handing $350. Then in New York City, if you're a white woman walking, you get punched in the face now.
And You know what's
walk
crazy
around-
about the New York City, the migrant $350 debit card? They're claiming it as a win. It's like we saved $700,000 because of the food boxes that don't get eaten.
I know, but that's my point. Is a year ago when like extreme, like conservative people were screaming about the wall, we're handing out money, we're doing this. Democrats just brushed it off and said, "What are you talking about?" Look, they'd show us charts of how many people were let in the country, blah blah blah, and then we've now normalized that. Okay, the migrants are here. We've accepted that. And then here's a debit card.
And you're at the Roosevelt Hotel.
There was a Babylon Bee,
which is a meme account.
The meme account that posted, he goes, my family and I went to Mexico. We crossed over the border. We got free hotel in New York at $350 a person.
Not bad.
So it's like, what became like a parody is now reality. And you think all of these news stories, like, how do we as a society have any confidence in anything we hear or do or interact with? People are going to go crazy.
I think that directionally speaking, it's important for people to question things, especially coming from like mainstream media.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, I've become much more cynical of mainstream media. But I think that the problem that this...
So like your crew is very cynical, which is fine.
Yeah.
But like, I think they have a little bit more level head in how they react to it.
Problem is that, what I was going to say is that my problem is that most people who are questioning things aren't very intelligent. And so they question things in not a great way.
Yeah.
That's not very constructive. But I think that overall, most things deserve to be questioned. And it's probably better as a society that we are moving towards a more cynical perspective, especially on what we get from the mainstream media. But it's just, you get really bad takes when I don't want to say the average person.
What if I took the opposite view on that, where 30, 40 years ago, we never questioned anything, right?
And we had a normally functioning society.
I would say,
for the most part,
I would say America felt like more united, happier place.
Yeah.
Right now, like we wake up every day. Probably most young people are questioning more than older people. Mm-hmm. Conservative older people have been questioning probably since Trump got elected.
I think since Obama. I think Obama tipped the scale.
Yeah.
Because no one wanted a black president.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we got to go all in.
Yeah. And so I think when
I say no one, not us, but,
I think the challenge becomes now, what is a normal state? Because like just thinking about this week, it's still Thursday. I mean, what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
or do we just become so numb to all of it and we just go on with our life?
I think we're at the point where everyone kind of jokes about it, even in our group chats, when we see these crazy stories. Yeah. Like, there was one that you shared an hour ago.
Yeah.
Like some fraud, luxury bags or whatever. Yeah. And everyone just laughs.
Yeah.
It's just become comedy at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's I think the difference between now and back then is that I forget who described this, but it kind of makes sense. It's like arterial clogging of like the American system happens because you just get more laws, more regulation, more taxation on all of these things. Mm-hmm. And eventually it reaches a breaking point where it's like, why does it take me 3 hours to go through LAX customs when the average person can cross the border in 30 minutes? You know what I mean? And so there's things that just don't make sense. And I think that, in the 60s, 70s, whatever, people didn't question them. Like Gulf of Tonkin, nobody gave a fuck back then.
Yeah.
That's what got us into the Vietnam War. Yeah. And it wasn't even really a thing that anybody questioned or cared about. Yeah. But it had this massive ramification on, America, the way of life. A lot of people died, et cetera. And so I don't know. I think that it's probably a natural evolution that is pushing back against the fact that the government has become so far overreaching in a lot of ways that kind of represent the antithesis of what like a true democracy is supposed to be. Yeah,
I can conceptually get behind that. I think in a world where TikTok algorithm influences the way you think daily, that's what gets me nervous, where it's like, dude, trust me, I question everything now. Like I don't take anything for face value anymore. And
so I guess that begs the question, which is the better way to have a society? where you question everything, or 25 years ago where you just accepted everything?
I think questioning is the right way because there's so many things like, let's take the Ukraine war. Do you know how many people have died there too? We take what's happening in Gaza, take what's happening in all over the world that the United States has chosen to be involved in. And nobody ever says the counter to, what if we didn't support Ukraine? What would have happened? Right? Like we don't think that through in government. It's just, no, we have to support our allies. We just blindly do it. Right. And so, and like even on the migrant issue, we're not even fighting anymore about letting them in. It's like, should we give them $350 and a hotel room? Can we at least keep the $350?
And it's 2 times more than a vet gets in New York.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and they're normalizing it. And this is why you have to question it, because it's not fucking fair.
Yeah.
In this environment where we know low-income Americans are struggling, and then we just turn around, how do we have the money to hand out $350 to everyone?
I think questioning things is inherently more democratic because it creates sides that basically the populace can decide on. Mm-hmm. When you stop questioning things, you get these authoritarian states like China or Russia or whatever, which, to be fair, I think in some aspects is really good. Like if you have like an authoritarian, patriotic sort of person pushing a country forward, you actually get quite a lot done. Like authoritarian capitalist,
like El Salvador.
Autocracies. El Salvador, but even China to a certain extent. The reason that China from 1980 to the mid 2000s did so well was because Xi was basically like, hey, I'm steering this ship.
Yeah,
I want China to be the best country in the world, or at least one of them. Yeah. Trust me, and I'll make it happen. But then you also, kind of the social quality of life goes down. There's all of this institutional and regulatory capture. And so it's kind of like a give and a take. But I do think that,
I think the China point is everyone was poor.
Yeah.
And then they lifted everyone from poverty to middle class, upper class, whatever.
Them,
They trust them. But then now their problem is everyone's now smart.
Yeah.
So now they're getting hip to game. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Look what happened with COVID. You locked our apartment buildings and sealed our windows, and now everyone is questioning that.
Well, no, I think
so. It's like an evolution. Like, I think authoritarianism, when you have a very impoverished country, actually probably can be helpful.
Yeah.
But then globalization is usually the thing that breaks these like autocratic societies, right? It's like you start to see the world and you realize, oh, everywhere's not like this. Yeah. And then, people get smart enough to the fact that.
As soon as, you hop on a plane.
Like the generation before that was trying to put food on the table, and I think it was Premier Lee, I forget what the name is. You're like, great, now I have 3 meals a day for my family. And then now the family has 3 meals a day and can go to a restaurant and travel and see how the rest of the world works. And they're like, wait, this isn't what I signed up for.
Because, here's the thing, given all the stories we just discussed, in the grand scheme of life, like people going to pick up their kids today, they're going to go to the ballpark, it's opening day baseball. Maybe no one really gives a fuck also.
I think if there's a certain base level that people can maintain, people don't necessarily give a fuck. Yeah. But when it's when that starts to overreach, like when taxes get too high, when your quality of life, your public schools start getting bad, there's potholes in the street, there's no police presence, that's when shit really starts to matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how many dinner table conversations, if you're a family of 4, it's 6:30, your kids are 10 and 8. So they obviously can comprehend what's going on. Are they talking about any of the topics we're talking about?
Very few. Especially if you're looking at the country as a whole. I think maybe in specific areas, San Francisco, New York, LA. But if you're going to, middle of Arkansas or whatever, I don't think that this is top of mind conversation at all.
Yeah, none of these topics.
Yeah.
I think the things that are going to be brought up are, like, to your point, Zach, around, crime. I think it'll be like, oh, did you see Timmy wore a dress today at school? Like, that's what's being talked about. Like and
they'll talk about opening day baseball. They'll talk about the NFL draft.
Yeah. I think that as chaotic as sometimes the news feels. Well, I think like when you look at things like X and TikTok, us as like, I don't really go on TikTok, but like I go on X. If you just sit on that for like an hour, you're like, holy shit, the world's crazy.
And you also think about like the memes. Everyone thinks everything's a joke.
Yeah. I think that actually helps. I think that helps in our favor because it doesn't because I think because the counter is if you take this shit so seriously, you go in. This is what shooters, like, oh my God, what happened in Baltimore? My community got fucked. I'm going to kill all the people that work on the ship. But people are nuts.
The opposite side of that coin is there's this Roman theologist named Cicero, and his famous quote was, if you give the people bread and circuses, they'll basically be happy forever.
Yeah.
So as long as they have the bare sustenance of bread and circuses to distract them from the real problems going on in the world, that's.
So you think that's meme world?
I think that not only is that meme world, but that's a variety of the things that we're seeing. And like that was a direct.
Give us a little NFL. Give us a little fucking memes.
Give us a little bit of stimmy. Like that's enough to placate people enough that they don't notice the degradation of society around them. And that's directly what impacted the fall of the Roman Empire. And so, I think that people.
So you think we're in the give bread?
I think
era.
we're in the bread and circuses era of America, and where they're trying
I'll be honest. I'm pretty content if I have a little bit to eat, a little cocktail, and a couple jokes. I'm fucking.
Isn't the counter to because a lot of people are speaking on the fall of America as this like preeminent superpower, is that who's next? There's no one. Europe's toast. China's toast.
But you could have said that about every single empire. It's not obvious who the next person upcoming after once the.
Okay, so let's say you got to make a bet.
Yeah.
Wait, who's more stable?
You're FanDuel tomorrow. You're Jonte Porter. You got to make a bet.
I mean, honestly, if we're not careful, it's probably China.
But they have a declining population. They have so many different metrics that don't work in their favor.
I don't think a homogenous society in this world can win.
I think that it probably in the current status we are now, but I think that we're deglobalizing. And so as nation states and nationalism starts to rise again, I think that you do get to a point where you have these more incubated or more insulated societies. And there's a chance that, you could just with those populations, India, China, there is a chance where you can literally live a self-sustaining society just in the walls of your own country, in my opinion. So,
okay, that's a big take.
Big take because Peter Zahan thinks they're done in 9 years because we talked about it a year ago.
Yeah,
it was 10 years a year ago.
I think that the level of technology that both India and China have at their disposal is probably underrated to what they can accomplish, just given the engineering capacity that exists in both of those places. I think that the famous quote is that most people overestimate technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. And I think that, if you have this compounding effect of people building really important, interesting things across AI, across all of these different applications, you probably underestimated how big of an impact that can have on a society.
But the counter to that is globally, all the best companies in the world are still in America.
Yeah, for now, but I agree. And they probably will continue to do so. I just think from just like a general, from a general country health perspective, unless we win the AI war, unless we win the space war, unless we win all of these things, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
The problem is the capital, right? So I spoke to a Chinese VC recently, and they were telling us that it's impossible to deploy in China. So they're leaving. They're basically looking to America. A Chinese VC is coming to America. They're not even going to Singapore. Yeah. They're like, fuck that. We'd rather put the money in America.
But no one will take their money out here. So they're kind of fucked in that way too.
And then secondly, I haven't been to China. I've been to Hong Kong a bunch, but never China. Obviously, I don't know if Zach, you've been, but D, I know you've been a bunch.
Yeah.
When you go to India, we've been going our entire life. The poverty is staggering. And that's a massive roadblock for that country, right? You have 300 to 400 million people that are living.
And infrastructure.
And the poverty is just 300 to 400 million people live on a few bucks a month or whatever the number is, right? So they're not even close. It'd take 100 years to lift those people out of poverty. When you go to China, obviously you've been to India a bunch, D.
Yeah.
Do you see
no
poverty?
No, none.
But you go to Bombay, the whole place is poverty.
Yeah. You're not seeing visible poverty in China. It just does not exist.
So that's India's biggest challenge.
They
in my
also
opinion.
probably just clean it up and like.
Well, it's also that you're probably not going to the places where poverty would be
Well, I
obvious.
mean,
But
look,
this is the biggest cities in India. Forget the rural. I'm talking about Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore.
Oh,
Like the three
Shanghai,
biggest
there's no
cities.
poverty.
no.
Guangzhou, no poverty.
I mean, the famous like joke is the Ambani $2 billion house just
Yeah.
looks over poor people.
yeah.
I mean, you go to the Four Seasons, you go to your bathroom, all you see is slums.
Yeah.
But I don't
the toilet
know-
is facing the slums.
I don't know if Modi is
That's even-
focused on the optics of India in the way that she is.
Yeah.
Like the likely reality of that is that all of these, there's a lot of poor people in China, and
Yeah.
they're probably just pushed out of the major cities because she doesn't want them there.
You don't want to see them.
Because you don't want the business people to come in and see poverty.
Correct. I don't know if Modi cares about the optics of India. In
I
that
also
same
think
way.
it's like structurally impossible. How are
It's
you going to?
impossible. Where are you going to put all those people? They also vote for him.
Yeah, they also vote for him, and that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing is the politicians bribe the
Hindu
poor
nationalistic
people. Yeah.
pride is what keeps him in power.
Mhm.
Interesting. So I think the big takeaway for me is I agree on the questioning. I think it's incredibly important year for all of this because it's an election year. And I'm curious to see. So you're obviously around a lot of people that probably vote all different ways. When you're around people in technology in San Francisco versus, say, technology people in Texas, what's their view of the presidential election?
The smartest people I know across the board are all leaning more right than they ever have.
Yeah.
And it's,
But are they right enough to vote for Trump?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't care.
They don't care. They don't care enough to vote ideologically. They're voting in a practical manner. And that tends to lean, it's not even that right. It's like, even if you're a centrist in this day and age, if you're like a middle of the line centrist, you're still going to vote right because the left has swung so far left. And so, yeah, I think that the majority of the smartest people I know, even if they're ideologically aligned with the left,
They just can't get themselves
Or
to vote.
they may abstain because I've heard that too.
or they'll vote, like for some third party or something. But it's very unlikely that the
I think the Texas smart people you're talking about will vote Trump.
even the San Francisco ones.
I don't think they are, and it doesn't matter because California's going to go blue either
Yeah.
way, and Texas will go red either way. Even the people I know that have kind of, been defeated by some of the left policies in the progressive cities, they can't get themselves to vote for Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I think all you have to do is look at like the city level politics in a lot of these places, and they're increasingly moving right. And I think that there's enough of that such that it's probably endemic of a much larger movement. But, again, a lot of these states, the lines are already hard, fast, and drawn. But yeah, a lot of the smartest people I know are very unhappy with the Biden administration.
Which is crazy. Lowest unemployment, highest stock market, inflation declining. Everyone's making money.
Yeah. I think
And people criticize Biden. That's what I always find fascinating. I know the optics. You get a picture of him, sleeping. You get a picture of him.
I think
I think it's also like the fabric of society that
Yeah.
they're more worried about. It's because I think that they're pretty confident that they would make a lot of these people that we're specifically talking about, the San Francisco elites, the New York elites, et cetera. They're pretty confident they're going to make money regardless
of who's in office.
who's in office. It's the more acute things that they start to care about. It's
But
like,
I think, isn't that the local level? Because you can criticize Biden from the optics, but from a policy perspective, he's actually kind of hit it out of the park.
yeah, but you can also
migrants now.
you can also say the
That's
same
on the
for
Texas
Trump.
border.
You could also say the same
That's
for
the
Trump,
whole
though.
the entire any bordering state.
All the border. Do we see migrants in California?
Of course you do.
Where? What hotel are they at?
You
They're not
live
in any
the
hotel,
biggest
but-
bubble of anyone
but-
that you talk about who lives in a bubble.
If
No,
you're,
but you do not hear stories of migrants in California.
because
Sorry.
it's so spread out.
No, but there's no policy of giving migrants in California a debit card.
We don't know that.
well, there's these things called sanctuary cities, of which San Francisco is one. And if you walk downtown San Francisco, basically 100% of the fentanyl dealers in San Francisco are from Honduras. And
I saw there was a big Honduras bus today.
And that's largely because San Francisco is a sanctuary city, meaning that they will not deport you if you are found out to have like do a crime or be here illegally, etc. And so I think that it's, yes, they're not paying for their livelihoods directly, but in indirect ways, you know, these things are sustaining because of various policies.
I think San Francisco has actually done a good job in this last election cycle. So they're
The most recent one,
yeah, the most recent one. They're implementing it's called Flock, I believe, and it's basically cameras on every corner.
Flock Safety, it's actually one of the best probably VC companies to come out in the last 10 years or so.
So they've implemented 400 cameras, I think, thus far.
Yeah, license plate readers and facial recognition.
So they're going full China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my point, is that like if you had actually done moderate changes with politicians and not been so extreme, now you're going to a full surveillance society.
Yeah, so like if you go to Pack Heights, your license plate's red, and if you're not the person taking the car on the way out,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. What a fumble for the city. Like you could have. You also understand, like he was just talking about overreaching of government.
Yeah,
this is going to be used for other purposes.
Yeah,
yeah,
not just the Honduran
this person's
stealing
having
your
an affair. Give me a PI.
Well,
Flock Safety. Where did Jimmy leave the house to?
Yeah,
I think one of the underestimated consequences of like this AI movement as a whole is it's probably going to push us to more authoritarian place, just because the mass amounts of data that you can basically utilize for a variety of different reasons now becomes tenable. Like
if you think about surveillance and AI, I don't even understand how anyone. Do you remember like in Demolition Man? Did you watch Demolition Man? You're too young.
No, I think I didn't. I missed that one.
Okay. Like you couldn't even commit a crime. It knew you were going to commit the crime before you did.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just knew.
We're getting close to that.
Yeah, basically, like how can we even allow people to commit crimes?
Well, not only are we getting close to that, we already have that, but it's just used for terrorism. I mean, it's probably used for other purposes too, but it's like the United States knew a week beforehand that the Russia massacre was going to go down.
Yeah.
They put out a bulletin to all Americans in Russia to stay away from concert halls, concerts, large gatherings, because they were aware. That already exists, but I think that the point that you're making is that it's going to be applied to a much wider variety of people than terrorists and et cetera.
That's just like if you own a 7-Eleven, you'd be like, okay, those two guys who just walked in are probably going to steal something.
So what's Joe Rogan, who you can have your opinion on him however you may have, he's been sounding alarm bells on this for the last 5 years, that we're getting to this police state where you're going to be able to predict and kind of assume someone is a criminal without even them being a criminal, and then they're tracked and who knows what happens next, and then you find them for doing something else, or you wrote a text message saying like,
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Well, some version of this has existed since 9/11, right?
Yeah, the Patriot Act.
Yeah, Patriot Act has allowed, FBI, CIA, name your 3-letter agency, to basically take your communication and build a map of what they think who you are as a person, what they think your ideology is, and what they think you'll do with that.
So here's my question about how the Patriot Act's implemented today, because in 9/11, 2001, there was probably 2% of the traffic of iMessage, WhatsApp.
Probably less. It was just email.
It was just email. So are they even capable? Because think about how many text messages all of us send a day. How many WhatsApp messages do we send a day? And that's just like the three of us. And then you extrapolate that across 400 million Americans. Are they even capable of tracking?
Yeah, this is where like the advancements in AI that I'm talking about come into play, especially around compute. Like if compute continues to scale linearly and you can start processing more information on less chip, and NVIDIA is coming out with, I think, a chip, it's called Blackwell, that is basically a 40x improvement on the best chip in the market today. These linear it's the same thing with just like computers in general, right? It's like they were super expensive originally. Now you can get a computer for like, I think you can get a Chromebook for like less than $200.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is going to be happening to GPU compute, where basically you'll be able to parse increasingly more information for less money. And I think that people like the NSA, like when I lived in New York, and I would encourage everybody to look into this, pretty interesting. I lived in Soho, and I used to live right next to this building that has 0 windows. It's like a 20-foot building, a 20-story building, 0 windows, nothing in it. And you never see people coming in or out. It's called Titan Point, TITAN TITANPOINTE, and it's basically the NSA's server building. It's 20 stories in the middle of Manhattan, filled with servers, basically doing this type of computing. And I think that
So they're monitoring New York citizens.
everybody,
Or you're talking about it's nationwide.
but they're also these exist around the country. So I think that increasingly you will start to see more of these types of places that require less resources, which in turn will make the processing of all this information
Yeah, if it's
much more
cheaper to
available.
monitor people,
Well,
you'll monitor everyone.
Isn't it curious that we have more monitoring than ever and more crime than ever?
I think that that's because of the way that the laws are
policies.
applied. It's like the laws haven't changed, just the way that people apply them has been different.
So what are we doing with the data?
I think that
We got Diddy.
no, I think that it's a good question. I actually don't probably know what's happening with the data, but like what's happening is
But here's the thing is put it like this. I'll say it to you differently. We have the data. We know what's going on. We are in a social dilemma of how we use that data.
it's the application of the data. Yeah.
Prejudice and race and things of that nature. And so we can't really execute it in our biggest cities because it will be perceived.
Well, I think knock on wood, we haven't had a major terrorist attack since 2001 from a foreign entity.
But there have been a ton that have been stopped.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
I think the data has been primarily exclusive use for foreign terrorism
Yeah.
because we haven't stopped any of the shooters,
Yeah.
even though they've put manifestos out there.
Yeah.
They've been public about, what their view on society is, and we haven't stopped any of them.
Yeah.
So what are we doing?
I think it's just a quagmire between like the national collection of data and the local application of how you basically use that data to stop things.
But don't you think we have enough technology right now that someone writes a manifesto of how they view society
They publish it. Yeah.
and they publish it on like their blog or whatever platform they're using, and then they go do a mass shooting, and we can't stop that.
Yeah, but the thing is that information is being collected at the national level, then that has to be sent to the state level, then that has to be sent to the local level, then that has to be sent to the local jurisdiction in which that information is most applicable. I think that process is probably extremely broken.
I mean, it needs to be like as soon as that data is captured, shoots a text to the local police next to Dylan's house and be like, "Hey, keep an eye on Dylan.
I think
this fucking kid's crazy."
That definitely doesn't happen. There's like a step ladder all the way down in which that process is
that could take
extremely
a
inefficient.
month for that information.
Yeah,
to
because
trickle.
domestic terrorism is on fire. International terrorism in the U.S. has been muted.
Yeah.
Because international terrorism is adjudicated at the federal level. So they don't have to go to anybody and be like, oh, like, stop this. It's just, the FBI will come to your house or the CIA will come to your house and literally just kick the door in versus, whatever small police force in whatever place where a mass shooting happens. It's just like the inefficiency of policy through the different levels is the issue, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Switching topics.
Quickly, Ohtani, I want to do a follow-up.
What do you got?
So Ohtani did his press conference after we talked about it.
Answered no questions.
Answered no questions, changed his whole story.
What's the story?
So
I've already lost interest in Ohtani. I moved on.
opening day, he hit a double and he was out. He overran second base. So that was his first hit. So he's still hitting.
Okay.
It's pretty good mental fortitude with all this going on.
Yeah.
So the ESPN story that came out last Saturday, Ohtani on the record, his interpreter on the record said that the interpreter claimed he was betting, went to Ohtani and said, "Can you please cover my losses?" And Ohtani wired the money. So $4.5 million that we know of.
Yep.
Does the press conference, says everything was stolen. I had no idea. So let's kind of break this down. If you're Shohei Ohtani, who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, you have a banker, you have a wealth manager, you have an accountant,
Yeah.
you have an agent. And if money went from your account under your name, you have to authorize it.
I know, but like Baker Mayfield, the parents took it.
But they might have been signers on the account. So was Ipe
He
a
may have let
signer?
Ipe be a signer.
And after the first million,
He doesn't know. That guy's not checking his...
but the wealth manager's like, "Hey, what'd you just spend $1 million on?" That's their job.
Well, wealth manager may not know Japanese.
It's just not believable.
So he goes to the translator, and
But the
translator
Baker
goes,
Mayfield was.
I'm not telling him.
I think he invested with the family. They didn't just steal it. You can't just steal money from your own account unless you sign the docs. That's how bank accounts work in America. You have to sign off.
Yes, I'm just saying who knows who are the authorized signers on the account. You don't know who the authorized signers were.
But how do you change your story in 48 hours?
I think it's probably just
He liked the news story.
What?
He liked the news story.
I can't. I mean, if this guy doesn't go down, then
What do you want him to go down for?
for lying.
You don't for what? What is this, China? So what? He lied.
He bet with an illegal book.
You should be arrested then. Okay, you're going down. I'm having you locked up at Shohei.
I don't play sports under MLB guidelines. You're not allowed to bet
But
on
that's
sports.
not against the law.
What he did was against the law. Of course it was.
We don't know that he bet on the game. There's no proof he bet on an MLB
bet with
game.
an illegal book.
He just bet. I don't think they have anything. The guy's going to hit 40 home runs this year. They'll be in the World Series. Nothing's fucking happened to Shohei.
Okay.
That's my belief.
Yeah, I think it's in the MLB's best. It's probably like a variety of lawyers that the MLB has that basically are concocting the most defensible story in their eyes. And,
Because who's going to go after him? The bookie?
No, the
federal government?
It's a federal investigation at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, MLB obviously doesn't want anything to happen.
yeah, but because he said he stole it, it's wire fraud, right? So that's why the federal investigators are getting involved. Like the actual act of betting, I think is like a slap on the wrist in most places, right?
100%. No one cares.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not getting kicked out of baseball for it. Not in this era.
And he's too valuable for them to do anything to that.
Dodgers owner is making a call to Gavin, be like, tell the judge, get out of here.
I saw, so obviously opening days today, because of Ohtani, they put a new Japanese themed restaurant that has teriyaki, Japanese hot dogs. So it was longest line of anywhere in the stadium.
Obviously, there's probably half the stadium Japanese now.
Yeah.
They're not kicking that guy out. He's too big to fail.
They kicked Jordan out.
Yeah, but that was I think that in the modern day where, DraftKings, FanDuel, you can basically bet anywhere on anything. There's zero chance that the MLB is willing to take that hit.
So the other view on sports gambling, which I think is really dangerous because obviously the NBA is going through it now with the nobody from the Raptors. And now obviously Ohtani's betting at the legal book.
I think you should be allowed to bet on the game as long as you bet on yourself.
I think that I agree with that.
That's fine. No, but
you just can't bet against yourself.
My larger point. So there's this, he's the most famous NBA gambler of all time. His name's Haralabob. And he went on this like Twitter rant how FanDuel, DraftKings, legalized gambling in all these different states. I think it's like 32 to 40 states at this point, almost. And you're going to have all these people just getting smoked, young kids, and they're going to lose their attachment to sports. Because if you lose your...
Oh, that's so sad.
You lose
no one gives a fuck.
No, and they stop becoming fans. So becoming like an existential threat to sports.
That's a pussy comment.
I don't know. I think it has legs.
Nah, it has no legs. You know what happens when you lose money gambling? You go away for a few years, you make a couple more bucks, and you come back.
I mean, think about it. After you stop gambling, how many years did you take off the NFL? A lot.
No, I was still engaged.
No, you'd brag about how you don't watch NFL anymore.
And then now I'm back. But I'm not gambling. So there was a break, because the point is that like I got comfortable watching the sports without gambling anymore. I enjoy it. I actually enjoy it more than I ever did before.
I also think the gambling's just going to ruin an entire generation. I think the bookie is great because there's friction to actually, you have to really want to gamble, and making it so accessible to the average person.
I mean, what do you think is happening on Robinhood?
Yeah, I think that the bigger threat is people gambling their 401ks, option like zero DTE options, like all this stuff.
Didn't Robinhood, their user bases fell off a cliff since everyone got smoked?
Option volume is not.
But not Robinhood's option volume, the national option volume.
No, even Robinhood option volume is still very high. Everyone's doing 0-day fucking options.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No, I know.
That's literally like betting a game.
But they we're a perfect example. Everyone during the pandemic made a ton of money trading options. Then they lost everything.
They're doing it on crypto again.
Yeah, it's just moved to a different
Platform.
platform.
But the thing is instead of saying, oh, gambling, this, that, like we allow it in crypto, we allow it in stock option trading, whatever. We just need to educate people to make
Well, no one's
better
getting educated.
So then who cares? I think sports are going to be bigger than ever. Bobby or whatever his name is doesn't know what he's talking about.
I think NFL will continue to be bigger than ever because of fantasy.
I just don't. I think there's an endless amount of people that want to gamble, and there's an endless amount of people that will continue to watch the sport. And I don't think any of this has an impact. Oh, fans are going to be disenchanted. They've been gambling for fucking 100 years on sports.
Yeah, but there's friction. I think the non-friction.
It's not
matters.
that hard. I mean, I don't know. People just gamble. People love it.
Of course, that's why
You're
I
very
think this exists.
anti-American.
Who?
You.
I gamble.
I know, but then you're shaming people who do.
I'm not shaming. I just think people don't bet what they're betting their life savings. I don't bet my life savings.
I think people are betting their life savings, and all people go to Herbalife and bet their life savings. Would you rather do Herbalife or do a 3-game parlay?
And you could also say this about real estate and whatever. Like, I think it shifts, right? Like every decade or so, there's kind of like this new thing that people, feel like getting rich quick is probably the underlying issue.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
People will always gravitate to any area where you think you can make money fast.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny the Raptors dude. It was like over 3.5 rebounds, and he takes himself out of the game within 4 minutes. Good stuff.
I mean, good for him. He's going. He's fucked.
He's fucked.
Because he's a nobody.
They're gonna make an example of him.
Yeah.
So that
That Shohei can live. All right, I want to talk quickly about Zyn. You're an active Zyn user. You have a 6 mg with you right now.
Yeah. So would you guys like one?
6 seems aggressive. I saw in our Discord, everyone who said 6 was like, man, I'm fucking dizzy as shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably just soft. Like if you actually, and this is one of the interesting things, if you actually look at like, so I have a lot of things to say about this. One is that, one of the most probably impressive people that I know, never smoked, never done anything in his entire life related to nicotine, now does nicotine patches on a daily basis because he's of the opinion that it probably boosts your IQ somewhere in the range of 10 IQ points.
Wow.
And not only that, there's a variety of studies that everyone
What is
can...
nicotine patch? Like the thing you put on your arm?
Yeah, like when you're quitting smoking.
Yeah.
Because he's worried about...
or whatever it was?
Yeah. He's worried about like the one thing drawback to Zyn right now, at least, that before, there hasn't been that too many studies about it, but the one drawback is that it's degenerative to your gums. And so if you can actually take nicotine in a way that is not degenerative to your gums, it's probably one of the best nootropics in the world, I would say.
Wow.
So
they'll figure that out.
Yeah, it's like neuroprotective. There's insane negative correlation between people who do nicotine and Alzheimer's and all of these neurodegenerative diseases. I think that it's and one of the things that I was talking to this person about was that if you look at periods of human consciousness expansion, a lot of them were underlined by people taking massive amounts of nicotine, whether it was smoking pipes, cigars, cigarettes. Like if you went to
give me an example of a time period.
Around when the nuclear bomb was created, all of those scientists were chain smoking cigarettes. If you look at when like psychology and like a lot of these philosophers, you're like Kant and all of these other people in Europe back in the day, they were smoking the pipe.
So is everyone in OpenAI just on cigs all day?
They're on other things. They're on like modafinil, Adderall, whatever. But if you want like a natural, version of this, that's probably less bad for you over the long term. Purely synthesized nicotine derived from non-tobacco is probably one of your best bets to get like some incremental boost to your output mentally. Okay,
so you're long Zyn.
I'm long basically people getting smarter through whatever means.
Yeah, I think you're in the wrong country, homie.
Yeah.
I think America's going to get skinnier.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get smarter. We just introduced Krispy Kreme into every McDonald's. What made anyone think that's a good
And
fucking
Dunkin'
idea?
Donuts now has released a spiked beverage.
Spike beverage. That's going to crush.
Yeah. And Subway does foot-long churros and cookies now.
And if you just look on Twitter and see opening day at all the stadiums, the new food items at all these stadiums.
Oh yeah, it's just like a
15,
churro inside of a
calorie.
michelada inside of a fucking ice cream sandwich.
That's America.
So, I mean, yeah, I think intelligence like money will it's like the 1%ers are just gonna have all of it.
Yeah.
So the people you interact with, I know a lot of folks you speak to on a regular basis. Do they really give a shit about society, or they just want to make sure they're fine?
I think that giving a shit about society directly impacts their own personal interests, and a better,
From like an investment perspective.
correct, a better, more functioning society is easier to map out and therefore profit off of. And so I think that like they kind of want efficiency in society, because then like it's these weird moments where there's like these black swan events where society does things that are unexpected, that are very difficult to model out, especially from like an investing standpoint. And so when you have like a society that's like functioning to a certain degree, I think that you're able to have a higher confidence interval in your predictions, because you can basically say, oh, there's not these weird edge cases where society is going to fail for X, Y, or Z reason. So we can sort of place our bets accordingly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like it. What's everyone saying about SBF? You got 25 years?
25 years and CZ's next.
So 25 years, he's how old? 30?
Probably, yeah.
He's like 31. And I think that this is fucked up, but it also does make sense. Like, I think it's fucked up because you can kind of like rape people or murder people and you probably get less of a sentence than this. But I think what's
Diddy going to get?
Less than 25 years, realistically. And I think that what's happening here is they're basically scapegoating him. They know that there's so much fraud and financial crime that's like intertwined with crypto. Not from like a hiding money perspective, but just like scamming people, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so what I think that they're trying to do is they're trying to make an example of him such that like, if you're, launching some Solana shitcoin, you kind of have in the back of your mind, like,
I could be SBF.
or I could be some version. Even if you have 10% of SBF's sentence, you launch a shitcoin and all of a sudden you're in federal prison for 2.5 years. Like, it's enough to make people
Scare them.
Yeah, like at least question what they're doing to a certain extent. So I think that that's basically the point of this all, is that, they're putting him up on a pedestal to basically say, hey, if you fuck around in this market, like this is one of the things that could happen to you.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I think CZ's next, and I think he's going to get somewhere in the ballpark of 2 to 5 years. And
That's
think
it?
about it. I think so.
The guy's probably printing money
He's
right now.
He's as big of a crook as SBF, CZ is. And, this guy was rumored to be worth $100 billion, parading around the world.
So he doesn't care. I'll do 5.
I mean, federal prison's different. They're not going to the Martha Stewart jail. They're going to real jail.
If you know this guy got 100 bill, you could pay your way and have a nice little experience.
Just pay everyone off so no one bothers you.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll set up a wallet for you.
Like what Diddy's prison life is going to be like.
And most prisons are for profit. So, I mean, you could take that for what you will, but there's a variety of different levers that you can pull to make your experience better there.
It's fair. But I mean, Do Kwon,
But he's in like Serbia or like Montenegro or something. Like that's a prison
the US
that I
is
wouldn't
trying
want
to extradite
They're trying
him.
to extradite him. But right now, his experience is probably not great.
But they all went down. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the
That's
day.
the thing with like the U.S. government. I said this at the top of the pod. If you commit crimes, sure, you might get away. But if they're large enough crimes, they're eventually going to get you.
So what about the hottest stock in the market, DJT?
DJT.
Where's the U.S. government with him? They can't.
Well, he's Teflon Don.
Well, and that's also like,
He's the only one that can get away from the Southern
I
District.
mean, he's going to be president before they prosecute him.
and this is the
Or
other
get
thing.
sentenced.
It's like, that's clearly something that a lot of people are betting on because they have no idea what it does. They just know Donald Trump. And I would say that that's actually more fucked up for people's life savings, et cetera, that something like this can persist because a lot of people are going to put money into this just because they love Donald Trump.
I mean, if I was him,
Can you guess the revenue of the last 9 months?
well, I know what it is.
It's very low.
$3 million, and
Yeah.
it's a $9 billion company.
I mean, that's like Anthropic. What's Anthropic doing?
Yeah, but those are private investors who are, like
I mean, if I was Donald Trump, are you allowed to legally say, instead of donating to my campaign, buy 10 shares?
he's selling Bibles.
it's
He's doing
definitely
everything.
illegal. But
It's illegal?
yeah, it's 100% illegal. But
But maybe you get like a Reddit community to like boost it up. Because if let's just say every Donald Trump supporter, let's say in America, call it 125 million people that like this guy, and maybe 30 million have like $100.
I mean, I think that's what's going on.
No, I think it's the same people, the hedge funds that are trading on nonsense on every company. They're like, fuck
Do you
it.
think Citadel has a position on DJT?
Everyone
100%.
does. Do you see the volume
But
on
you
this
just
fucking
don't
thing?
know what side. And like,
Yeah.
I would imagine the most thoughtful people are basically betting towards the downside with as little risk as possible.
Yeah. So right now the company is worth what? $7.5 billion?
I think higher after
Eight
today.
or nine.
Yeah.
8 or 9.
8-9 billion, and he owns what, like 30%?
It's actually doubled his net worth on paper.
I like how are you going to post your bail?
He said cash.
And turned around. He's just too much content. It's really hard to compete with the level of content he's
I actually
putting
think
out.
that he's probably, unironically, one of the best comedians that America's ever put out. His comedic timing and his ability to make people look stupid in the face of the things that he does is actually second. Like as a person and as a politician, I have my issues with him, but as a comedian, purely from a comedic standpoint, I think that he's probably one of the best comedians that America's ever put out.
I mean, he's given a lot of laughs for the whole world.
100%.
Yeah.
On a national stage too. Or like on a global stage even.
Yeah.
Like when he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man and all
Yeah.
of these things, it's like, not only is it
I
impressive.
mean, he came up with Sleepy Joe,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
The content he gives is unbelievable.
It's incredible.
All right. Winners, losers, content. Anand, who's your winner of the week?
Oh, NFL. They took over Christmas Day. It kind of fell on the schedule last year.
Yeah.
And now they just said, fuck it. We're destroying the NBA. NBA had the most sacred.
So they're auctioning off 2 games.
Yeah.
The starting bid is $50 million a
That's
game.
light. It should be 100.
Well,
Didn't
it's
the
an
120
auction.
Yeah. I mean, it should have started at 100. That
mean-
Peacock game went for 125.
I mean, if I'm like, think about it, like, wouldn't it be such like a coup for some random company to just buy it?
So what do you think the NBA does?
Like Zyn.
Does NBA
Zyn
need
just
to,
goes, fuck it. Here's $100 million.
should they do we're the day after Christmas? Because they had the most sacred games.
They should move to Christmas Eve.
Yeah, they probably have to.
Yeah. Day after Christmas, people don't want to be at home. Christmas Eve, everyone's at home. And I think
They need to move the games.
Yeah, they got to move to
Like
Christmas.
you got crushed this last year,
Yeah.
and you're going to get crushed because they're going to put the Chiefs, Mahomes and Kelsey will be the Christmas Day game.
versus like Steelers or something big. It'll be something big. Some
They're
like
not putting the Jags and the
Lions
Panthers.
or whatever. Yeah, they're putting big games. Damn thing's a money printing machine.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty bold move. I don't know how this works in that world in terms of like Goodell obviously knows Adam Silver, who's the commissioner of the NBA. And is Silver like, yo, please don't do this? And
Yeah, I
he's
mean,
just like, "Fuck
I
it."
think they just have to be like, this is the kind of, it's also a pivotal time in the NFL season. It's not a pivotal time in the NBA season.
No, it's irrelevant.
It's an irrelevant time. So he's probably saying like, dude, you can have Easter. You know, what is Easter to Christmas?
April. It's this Sunday.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's this Sunday, right?
End of
So
March.
that is basically like you own Easter. We own Christmas. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and when LeBron and Steph are gone, this league's toast.
Yeah. It just doesn't have the star power.
No.
It doesn't have like the, I don't know. Even though these other kids are really good, I think the fact that they're not American really is a problem.
And I also
I
think
agree.
And I also
Like
think
Wembanyama, who is he?
Yeah. Jokic.
Jokic, Luka.
Luka. Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are the three best players. in the
Giannis,
NBA.
like, you know, they're not, we didn't see them. We saw LeBron grow up.
And I also think, and this is kind of a shitty thing to say, they make so much money in their contracts that they're not incentivized to promote the game.
Yeah.
Because if you make $70 million in your contract, do you care to go do the promotional tour?
Yeah.
Probably not.
That's rough. All right. Bye. Who's your winner, Zach?
I'm probably about a week late with this, but I think Elon Musk.
Okay.
Pretty the obvious winner of at least the last month. I mean, what's happening with Starship is insanely impressive. What's happening with Neuralink, also insanely impressive. I hear great things happening with his AI product. Twitter is on fire, like it's the highest users, highest return on ad spend it ever has. I think that like what he accomplishes every month is probably more than most people will ever accomplish in an entire lifetime. And it's just kind of shitty to me that
He must be on Zen a lot.
he probably is on a lot of stuff. But I think that, you know, it's fucked up the way that, you know, public perception is oriented towards him, even though he's not from America. I think he's probably one of the greatest Americans that we'll see in our lifetimes. And so, yeah, I think that he just constantly continues to put out wins, and people tend to focus on, you know, the negative aspects of how he carries himself, which is, I think, just doesn't really matter in the face of the progress that he's making for us and as a society and just the world generally. So I'm going to give it to Elon.
That's amazing. I agree. That's great. My winner of the week is actually a consumer company. It's called Natrium. It was co-founded by a YouTube influencer, and it's sold to Elf Cosmetics. And it's sold, this is crazy. This number is crazy. It sold for $355 million. It started in 2020.
Oh.
$17 million of EBITDA. It's a skincare brand. And the woman's name that started it is, Susan Yara, who's a makeup YouTube beauty influencer. This happened in less than 4 years.
Wow.
I you know, people kind of have like forgotten about like the creator economy, and I think it was one of those things where like not every creator is created equal. There are very influential people, and those folks can build really insane businesses. And so like Kardashians and Jenners are like, to me, the creme de la creme of that. But then like, dude, this is crazy to get this. These numbers are nuts. 90 million revenue, 17 million of EBITDA.
Yeah, it's legit.
20% EBITDA margins. And to get an exit like that is crazy. Cash too, Elf Cosmetics.
Great.
All right, who's your loser?
My loser is, I mean, I talked about it a little bit, was sports gambling. I just think it's going to crater an entire generation.
I think that's a soft ass answer. I think you're the loser for saying that they're the loser.
Like, do you want your, I mean, God, I think people are just going to lose their entire, like they're going to take their paycheck.
But they've already been doing that.
No, it's not as easy. You can't just, if you want to make $100 bet, no one's taking your action unless you
what's the max you can bet on these things?
Couple $100.
Yeah, I don't think you can bet like 10 grand.
No, there's 4-figure like entry fees.
Yeah, but maybe like low 4-figure. There's no like, you know, $7,500, $10,000.
Yeah, I don't think you can make like $100,000 bet.
Yeah, I don't know.
My suggestion is if you are a gambling addict, you should go to Vegas and at least get the perks of gambling. Otherwise, it's stupid. Like
Agreed.
blowing it on FanDuel is so dumb. At least go to Vegas, they'll buy you dinner, they'll give you a free room.
Because even like Jason Tatum was in an interview, the star of the Boston Celtics, saying he hears in the crowd, one more rebound. Because these addicts are just,
Yeah.
you know, playing prop bets.
Yeah. Fantasy football has that impact too. It's just not gambling.
Yeah, it's private gambling. You have your own, everyone gets mad for sure.
Who's your loser?
My loser is probably the entertainment industry as a whole.
Why? Because they're all pedophiles.
I think that's a big aspect of it, but I think that like one of America's greatest exports has been culture.
Yeah.
And, it was one of these heralded institutions like the American entertainment industry, movies, television, music.
Yeah.
It's like this thing that sort of permeated the world. You have like random people in sub-Saharan Africa listening to Future and stuff. Like that's been kind of like one of America's strongest pillars of like global relevance for a very, very long time. And you're starting to see the cracks show across all of these different verticals about how not only like inefficient and maybe kind of like losing steam that it has, but just the fact that like most of the people at the highest levels operating these industries are just kind of fucking weird and like aren't probably like very good people. And I think that has like a negative impact in the way that people around the world start consuming this stuff. And so, I think the entertainment industry as a whole is kind of going through this reckoning period where it's probably losing relevance. You look at movies, there's not really that net new amount of creativity. Every movie is just like either a remake of an old movie or like a sequel to another movie. Music has kind of lost a lot of its like pizzazz and interest. I just think that the fact that so many negative things surrounding the American entertainment industry keep popping up, and every month it seems to be like a new thing, is A, not very good for America, and B, just kind of like a sad sort of like slow destruction of what was probably one of the best things that America had going for it.
I also think, I was thinking about the Diddy thing a lot, obviously, as everyone has this past week. This guy's been famous since the early 90s. Yeah. And other than just being really wealthy, when you're that famous as well, you just start getting delusional about boundaries in life. And I wonder how much, if you had to do a pie chart, what does that contribute to him being a degenerate? Or was he always going to be degenerate, whether he was famous and rich, either way?
I mean, I think like, I don't know how accurate any of this information was, but on X, people were posting like who his father was, that his father was involved with, drug dealing in DC area, got killed, murdered. Like, you don't know like what he went through as a child that made him to the person that he is, and probably had that resilience is probably the reason why he was successful, but it's also probably why he's crazy too.
Yeah, I think that, and the other aspect of this is like one of my favorite sort of frameworks for thinking about this stuff is that money just magnifies who you are as a person. If you're a good person, it allows you to do like a bunch of great things that, you would have done anyway, just probably not at the scale that money allows you to. But if you're a bad person, it honestly magnifies all of your negative qualities because you can get away with a lot more of the shitty aspects of yourself. Yeah. And so I think to a certain extent, probably some function of upbringing and, life circumstance. But on the other side of things, like, I think that, as you get more money, you eventually feel more untouchable because you're surrounded by lawyers, you're surrounded by advisors, all these different things. And I think that,
no one says no.
And nobody says no. And so I think that really contributes to...
you can't to him, he'll blow up your car.
Yeah. Like if you're a bad person and you're broke, there's only so bad, like it's only so bad you can get to. But if you have, billions of dollars, unlimited access, and a variety of these other sort of aspects of being really wealthy, it just allows you, it just magnifies your shittiness, basically.
And you think about how many people looked the other way when they saw bad stuff going on.
Or were too scared to basically come up and say anything because they were worried about being sued or their careers being, scuttled or any of these things. Like, I think that money just makes bad people even worse. Yeah.
That's fair.
And think about how powerful Diddy has been the last 20, 30 years almost. Think about how many people looked the other way. Because the executives knew.
Yeah.
The head of the labels knew. So this goes like pretty high.
I mean, I guess like, objectively speaking, you're the head of your Lucian Grange. What can you do? What are you going to go to war with this guy? Like, he's blowing up people's cars. You don't think he'll blow up Lucian Grange cars? You don't like what he says to say? You're afraid of the guy.
And like,
that's like mafia level, then.
But that's why I think the level of what's happening is that if nobody was able to say, hey, yo, dude, slow down, because they're probably afraid, like, for their life.
And this kind of stuff contributes to like my loser of the week, right? Like the fact that this is like the primary focus around music in general for this week just contributes to like the degradation of like this being a good and interesting place and like full of creativity, et cetera. Like all of that gets ignored for the amount of time that this is sort of like at the forefront. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just, I think, and I said this at the beginning of the pod and I continue to maintain this. I think we're really actually just at the start of like a bunch of dominoes falling in this way. And so
that's crazy.
I'm interested to see.
I'm afraid to
how
see
it all shakes
what
out.
we see next.
Yeah.
So my loser of the week are all the hit pieces on all the gurus that are happening.
The hit pieces or the actual gurus?
I'm team gurus on this one.
Same here.
I think Jay Shetty was gone after, Andrew Huberman has been gone after, and after hearing kind of the recaps of the articles, they did questionable things. Nothing was illegal. I don't think they were committing like serious fraud or anything like that. They embellished their stories, sure. The thing that bothers me is like those two people in general have had generally net positive impact on a lot of people. Yeah. Like when I meet people, they reference Jay Shetty, they reference Andrew Huberman. And so when you have people like who people really care about what they have to say, I don't think it affects any of their core fans, to be honest, anyways. So all you did was a bunch of people like me who don't listen to either be like, oh man, fuck them maybe. I don't care. But it doesn't impact me. But like their people, like it clearly helped. I especially Huberman. I mean, I hear everyone's repeating what this guy has to say all the time. And so if your life got better and healthier because of him, who cares? Let him fucking be. Let people change their life. You know, I don't think people are living and dying by these people's words, like the way the reporters make them sound. Mm-hmm. Huberman had too many girlfriends.
Yeah. I think it's like...
What, do you have 6 girlfriends?
5.
6, yeah, 5 or 6 at the same time.
Okay.
But I think that it's like really losers pandering for clicks. Like, you know, traditional mainstream media is basically dying. Like nobody really gives, I think it was New York Mag.
Yeah.
New York Mag has been completely irrelevant for I don't know how long until they did this.
Yeah.
And I think that like there's this forcing function that's happening in media these days where you have to come up with the most like salacious bullshit, like personally invasive stories to maintain relevance. Yeah. And we've kind of been pushed that direction by the algorithms and all these other things. But I think that it's just like these losers don't really have anything else to talk about besides like this is like tabloid level shit, you know, like this is the stuff that you would find in like at the checkout stand of a fucking like supermarket 20 years ago. Yeah. And now all of a sudden they're like positioning it like this is like the end all be all of news. And I think, by
the way, if there was something bad that they were doing, like, you know, what's happening with Diddy, I'm okay with that too.
Agreed.
Like if they were committing crimes.
You mean you're okay with exposing it, not okay with the crimes. Exposing them. But like the fact that like you do these hit pieces and you get that like Huberman's kind of like a shitty guy and had 6 girlfriends.
And it's only
JFK's revered as one of the greatest presidents, and he fucked everything in sight.
And if you like were to go to
Bill Clinton to this day,
if you go to Fortune 100 America, how many significantly worse versions of this there are? Nobody gives a fuck. But it's only because it's somebody who's like, it's like the actions are somewhat diametrically opposed to like what they're actually preaching, and a lot of people seem to care about the positive things that are happening in the world. They just decide to like tear them down because they know people are going to want to see.
He's such an alpha male, like, and that's a little like, you know, contrarian to where we want to go as a society.
Yeah, it's fair.
Content.
Future Metro Boomin, Kendrick Lamar, Like That is the song name. Kendrick was an alpha on the song.
I think it's great for music, that song.
And it went to #1 on Billboard. I think it at one day hit like 7.3 million streams, which is some sort of record, I think.
Rap needed that badly.
Yeah. And I thought the song was great. The verse is incredible. I admittedly don't listen to music much anymore, but this song I've played a lot last week.
my contrarian perspective on this is actually kind of weak comparatively to history. Like if you think about songs like Hit 'Em Up or like Ether.
That might have crossed the line.
Yeah, but like that's what like these industries were based on before. Whereas like full like fucking burn everything to the ground. Like fuck you and your entire family. And now just like these weird sort of subtweet lyrics now like galvanize the entire world into caring about. I think it's just, it goes to show how like soft things have gotten so soft. It's like, you know, these were like subtweets at best, you know? And so I just think that
it's not a jugular.
Not at all.
No.
And it's like if you weren't like chronically online, you would have probably missed a lot of like what was being said anyway. Yeah. And so I just think that, you know,
I think in general rap disses are like,
this is weak.
They're clever. They're not meant to be like, you know.
I don't know. You look at Jay-Z and us like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They were like, fuck your whole family. Like,
they were ready to kill each other. I don't think Kendrick and Drake are ready to kill each other.
And that's kind of weak, in my opinion.
One end, we're going to arrest Diddy for Homeland Security for blowing up Kid Cudi's car. Here, you want them to kill each other.
I just think that like, I just think that like music is a fucking competitive sport. You know, like it's a free market.
So you want them to say, I'll kill you, kill your whole family.
If that's how you feel, 100%.
I like the contrarian take.
I like it. What's your content? Obviously not that song.
But the counter to that is you do have rappers dying left, right, and center.
100%. But if you feel that way,
the content to kill them was not good enough is probably his point.
Yes. My content of the week is basically just the entirety of X.com. I think, regardless of what you're interested in and like, you know, depending on what's happening in the world at the time, you get such a breadth of interesting perspectives and opinions and thoughts around anything that's going on. And I think that, you know, like X.com seems to have fostered a lot of freedom of speech for better or for worse. But the fact that you can basically have all of these different competing ideas, and because it's, you know, it's a like-based system, retweets, quotes, whatever, you know, you find all of these interesting things that get pushed to the top because, you know, they capture attention and interest. And I just think X is, to me, probably the best social media platform that exists in the world right now. And I encourage anybody, no matter what you're interested in, to type that into the search bar of X.com and just enjoy the variety of different perspectives that you see on it.
You want to? I'm going to give you my one take on X that I find very frustrating as a user. I go to X not for the news itself, but for the comments.
Correct.
And it's completely spammed with verified users posting content that's not related to the topic because they know that's an engaged comment section.
Yeah.
They got to solve that problem.
Yeah.
I think that's like a real flaw because like everyone wants to go to the comments. Right? Like something happens in the world, like there's a Diddy thing. I want to see the comments.
Yep.
And I think they fucked up that piece.
I think that's something that TikTok, you know, I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but I think that's something that TikTok does very well. Like if you check a TikTok video and you look at the comments, quite funny, one, and two, very relevant to like whatever's going on.
And
for the
no
most
spam.
part. And no spam. And so, yeah, I think that's something that needs to be solved. But by and large, I think that if you're a discerning individual and can kind of look through all that stuff, there's a lot of gold to be found on X. So,
okay, I like it. My is March Madness.
Okay.
Men's, women's, Sweet 16, grade 8, all be decided this weekend to the Final Four next week.
Who are you rooting for?
I can't name one men's college basketball player. Not one, except one kid, the Duke kid on TikTok. I can recognize his face. I do not know one player.
Did you guys see this Duke TikTok class? Have you heard about this?
No.
This is kind of like an aside, but you can pay money to go. You know, Duke is $62,000 a year. You can actually pay have your kids go to a TikTok class that basically just teaches you how to be the best influencer on TikTok that you can possibly have. And so
you could go West Hollywood and Melrose. You can learn that.
Yeah. So I just think that's ridiculous. But
that's ridiculous. So I'm definitely, this is the first time in my life I know more female college.
Well, you know two. You know Caitlin Clark and Juju Watkins.
And Angel Reese.
Angel Reese.
I know three.
I
do not know one single men's college basketball player.
That's left.
Or period. I don't know the name of one player. Bronny James. That's who I know. And he's not even playing.
And he's off the bench.
It's actually, to me, that's like a flaw for the sport too. Like college football players. You know how many college football players I know?
And the ratings actually have been good though.
Yeah.
For the
But
tournament.
there's no stars.
It's because of the bracket, the office bracket.
And that kind of dovetails back into your original point about how international basketball players are infinitely more interesting all of a sudden than sort of our domestic talent. So
Yeah.
Well, they're better. They're just not more interesting.
yeah, that's probably right too.
Yeah. All right, Kathy's. Great episode. We have some shout outs. First one from Nate. Shout out to Ryan for being a shit friend and not giving me a birthday shout out. Hashtag fake friend. Hey, the piece of shit Ryan. That's too bad. From Shant. Special shout out to D, John, and Charlene from Ghost who have helped our company implement early payment solutions. Wow. Nice. Shout out to Chili Chews. Chili Chews. This kid, him and his partner started Chili Chews during COVID. And Shant used to come to our office and sit quietly, help me with whatever, just like if you ever needed help. And he built this multi-million-dollar candy business that's now in like Target and grocery stores and TJ Maxx all over. And he's killing it. And he's a law student at USC.
Drop
Insane.
out.
I've been telling him to drop out.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And money.
Similarly, well, I didn't finish the full shout out, but excited to see Ghost continue to grow and help brands reach that next level throughout their own journey. D is a great human being. His
You
words,
lost me, Sean.
not mine. Entrepreneur and has shared so many helpful tips to founders on this pod. Wishing him, Anand, and Drama a lot of success this year. Go get Chili Chews, bro. It's incredible candy.
Where do you find it?
Literally everywhere. It's in every grocery store. Go to their website, Amazon. So basically, it's like
He
spicy.
can't be that good of a law student if he's building a multi-million-dollar.
I'm curious. Respond to me and tell me if you're a good law student. The candy's good. So it's basically like spicy Sour Patch. It's really fucking good. All right. He should do a Zen collab. Nicotine, spicy Sour Patch.
What's up with our Zen business? We kind of dropped the ball. We have so many people DM us saying they're ready to run it.
So what do we
I don't know what the next step is.
I think we just go to an easy state where they allow the regular vending machines inside of ID'd place.
And they're like 5 to 10 grand.
Yeah. So we get one machine that's tested and then we scale from there.
Can I offer somewhat of a flaw to this plan?
You're such a pessimist.
rapper to kill each other.
Yeah.
No,
We're trying to do American exceptionalism and you're fucking us.
No, well, you would need to go to Zyn directly and basically get a part of their distribution network. It's like
Do you know the CEO?
Why can't I just go to like Costco and just buy that shit?
you probably could, but they would shut it down really quick. It's like alcohol, right? Like you can't just buy Casamigos from Costco and put it into a vending machine. Like it's a similar issue. You need to actually go and talk to the owners of these companies and basically say, hey, can
Mr.
I have
Morris.
like a license to distribute your product? Otherwise, because it's just the regulatory hurdles are so high around this kind of stuff that if you don't have explicit buy-in from the actual companies that you're distributing, they get pretty litigious as far as
That's
I'm
a
aware.
very non-Silicon Valley way of thinking. You just do. And
Yeah,
you,
you
go to
break things.
Yeah.
Worry about it
I
later.
mean, be my guest. I like the idea. I would use them.
Oh, we can do a Lucy one.
Shout out to John Coogan.
Do you know the CEO of Lucy?
I do. It's a
So
good
can
guy.
we just do Lucy?
We can talk about it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have an incredible weekend. It's spring has arrived in LA, except it's raining this weekend. Next week it'll be nice.
And last shout out, happy birthday to my wife Amanda, March 29th. It's tomorrow. Happy birthday. I love you.
What are you guys doing?
You're invited. On
I
Sunday.
didn't know that was a birthday celebration.
You guys are doing something.
All right. Happy birthday, Amanda.